Hello, hello, and welcome to the Become Your Magic Power Hour with yours truly, the Queen of Soul Stir and Inspiration, where we come from Monday through Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. Although this is the last week, we'll be going live from 7 to 8 p.m. only because I have so much stuff on my schedule and I'm trying to structure and organize. So starting next week, I'll be going at 12 noon, lunchtime, power hour. Almost like for those of you that know the 1 hour watch, baby. But I'm not going to actually be, sorry, doing it no longer at 7 p.m. starting on Monday. So moving forward, I just want to welcome you, celebrate you. This is the Become Your Magic Power Hour, where we come together for an hour of our time in order to what? Figure out what are the different abracadabras that are necessary for us to show up in our power. Hello, good evening, Vivian. I'm so glad to see you. And so what this is all about is about us really showing up for ourselves. I mean, what I learned, like this epiphany, this Become Your Magic abracadabra experience, what I really learned is you are what you believe about yourself. You do what you're confident about, right? And so if we can begin to recognize that we really control our fate and we control our destiny, then we really begin to take power over what it means to actually serve, what it means to actually become our magic, what it means to actually operate out of our abracadabras, recognizing that we have all the power. And so today is going to be a good topic. I'm super excited because the topic today is what have you been exposed to and how have you developed thus far? What have you been exposed to and how have you developed thus far? That's going to be a good thing, honey. I just got that a couple of hours ago and I'm so excited because we're going to start with our definitions and we're going to be super intentional about this topic because I know that God really wants us to go somewhere with this so that we can really see ourselves, right? This is not just a waste of your time, but this is plugging into a source. That's why I call it the power hour, because to have power is to have enough energy, enough rejuvenation, enough juice, should we say, in order to continue pressing on. And so just as we power up our phones, just as we power up, refill our cups, our batteries, our gas tanks, all the very things in life that are material things, we take the time to plug it into a source of electricity in order to what? Refill and recharge, become, right? For it to operate on its best capacity, at its highest capacity. And so that's what this power hour is all about. It's about us recharging in order to what? Be able to operate at our highest capacity. And so as always, the first 15 minutes is about us celebrating one another. And so Vivian, what can I celebrate you for today, right? What can I celebrate you guys for? If you guys catching on a replay, please put in a comment, why do you know that you are worthy? Why do you know that you have the power to become your magic? And have you what? Have you been igniting those abracadabra moments? Because every abracadabra moment reveals the magic that is you, right? Because in a moment, abracadabra is just the instant between when something changes, right? And a moment and something changes instantly. And so if you think about abracadabra, it's like the moment you change your mind, you change your outcome. I mean, literally. That's why abracadabra is a mindset. The moment you think different, you move different. The moment you let go of the load, you become lighter, right? That's instantly. So abracadabra means the moment that I look different, the moment that I began to walk different, the one moment that I was born again, I realized that all the things that I've been through is what makes me so amazing. Those are the moments that I say abracadabra. And I'm going to tell y'all a funny story, honey. earlier today, sometimes I'll be sitting there going down memory lane, and I'm sitting there telling my husband, you remember back in the day? I mean, we've been together 21 years, married 18, be 19 in March. And so I'm like, you remember back when we first met, and, you had a girlfriend and I had a boyfriend, and, everybody, we were 19 and 20, and it was just like when you made all of the wrong decisions. And, we was just laughing about just who we were, right? And so when I was trying to remind him of how we courted and, just what got us to this point, and I was like, see, I saw something great in you, and he was like, I saw something in you, and we went back and forth, and then he was like, and when I was beginning to remind him of his mistakes, he looked at me and he said, abracadabra. And let me tell you something, when I say we laugh, I laughed till I was crying, because I said, I see you've been listening. But at the end of the day, that abracadabra is to stand up in who you are, right? To stand up in what you are. Changing the time, right? Yes, Vivian, I'm going to be changing the time next week to 12. So at 12 noon to 1 p.m., I will be doing the power hour starting Monday the 12th. Starting Monday the 12th, I will be doing the power hour at 12 p.m. So I'm going to finish it out the rest of this week. This is our third week on. And so, yes, that's what I will be doing. So at this time, before we because we're getting close to the 15-minute mark. Vivian, I see you says positive exposure ? That's what we're going to tackle. Because all exposure is just basically what you were, open to, right? What you got exposed to, what you got to see. Exposure means to be unprotected, not sheltered, right? Vulnerable. And so when I speak about exposure, we're going to go through the definition before I go on to the whole idea that I got and how I want us to see ourselves when we think about exposure being developed and focus. So these are the 3 words that we're going to play with today. And then we're going to decide by what we've been exposed to, because most anything you've been exposed to automatically makes you vulnerable, right? Because it plants a seed of something. Everything we do in life is a seed of thought, a seed of what we've seen, right? But they still it sticks in our mind, our memory. So the reason why I know even when I see it, it becomes a memory of mine. So it becomes a mind thing, right? Doesn't stay in my eyes. I don't walk around with that picture and I can't see a new picture. It then transfers into my mind, and so it becomes a memory. And so when we're talking about exposure, we want to know, what have you been in the presence of, right? What have you been exposed to, and what did you do with that vulnerable state that you were in, right? Did it increase you? Did it decrease you? And how have you developed after whatever exposures you had up to this date? And so that's what we're going to deal with. Like I said, it always takes me forever to do this sharing thing. So it's about us understanding what is it that I have been exposed to, and how has it developed me, and have I changed my focus throughout my life thus far. So whatever age you are, whatever you've been exposed to, we're going to play with it as if whether you're a photographer, right? We're going to play with it on so many different levels, but I just want y'all to think about those words right now before we get to that point where we go over it. We want to think about being exposed, developing, and focus. How those words can really play an amazing part and role in your life, right? Because what we got to understand is that how we think, what's in our mind, what's in our hearts, what's in our souls is just who we become. That's our exposure, right? And so what we've experienced through our childhood, our traumas, right? Even as far as the joys. See, the thing that we have to understand is that we all have had highs and lows. The reason why we stay stuck is that we focus on the lows more than we focus on the highs. And then as you're developing, you are going to develop the thing that you're focused on. So the question is, what have you been exposed to, and how have you allowed that to develop in your daily life into who you are today? And so that is the exciting thing about this course. Exposure, good and bad. Exactly. Because exposure can be good or bad. It just means that you went unprotected, that you wasn't sheltered, right? That you seen it. To be exposed or sheltered from the weather means that depending on if it's raining outside, if you was able to get shelter, then you wasn't exposed to the rain. But if you wasn't, you got wet, right? Almost done, you guys. Almost done. So remember, take this time to share. I think that I got it. Okay. All right. Here we go. All done. All done. Okay, so as I was saying, we are dealing with the Become Your Magic Power Hour. This is your first day on. I want to welcome you for just showing up for you, clocking into you, realizing that this assignment time. We're in 2020. The pandemic has hit us all. We each have different dreams, different desires. And sometimes when we don't have access to the right power ups, the right power source, that we tend to miss the lessons in order to turn them into blessings when we're not looking from the right perspective. I mean, from a half full cup type of perspective instead of a glass full, halfway empty type of perspective. We tend to change the way we develop. We tend to change the way we see ourselves. And so the more positive I think, the more seeds of unstoppability, right? If that's a word, the more I think of myself being unstoppable, the more I nurture and focus on the good parts of myself, the more I nurture and focus on the things that I desire, the things that I want, because I realize that if I am my own magic, and if I create abracadabra moments by being present in the instances where I have the power to change my emotional connection to what I'm going through, what I'm feeling, and where I'm at, then I can really change the trajectory of my life just by being conscious mentally, right? And so the bottom line is the renewal of our mind, right? Not that we didn't go through, not that we're not going to experience, is that even after that traumatic experience, even after that low moment, even after that thing happened to me in my life, I chose to replace that memory. I chose to decide, what did I gain from that situation, right? Because all situation will give us a loss, and it will also give us a gain. And so it goes back to the concept of always living in your advantage point and not your disadvantage point, right? Because to be at disadvantage is to dismiss the process, and to see yourself at an advantage point, it is to add up the course and the process it took for you to be where you are, right? To acknowledge that it was all necessary, because God is so perfect in the storyline that is you, right? And that you get to decide where you go and who you are and how you show up by just seeing your beauty. And so, Vivian, you said our shelter would makes one naive. Absolutely. And you see what I mean? So to be sheltered is worse than being exposed. You know why? Because to be sheltered is to miss the lessons in life. To be sheltered is to misunderstand why you came to be a solution, right? Because in order to be a solution, there has got to be a problem. In order for there to be a solution, there has got to be a problem. And so to be sheltered is not to experience rain enough to figure out solutions to what can be done. And so if you're covered in the weather, right, nobody would have thought to create an umbrella because the rain will never stop. And if every time it rains, you stop moving, then you miss getting through something, right? And so if your scenery isn't changing, then you're not going anywhere. It's just the law of physics. In order for me to see that I'm moving, then what is around me is changing. And so if I don't allow myself to be exposed in order to be molded into my change, then I miss what it means to get exposure, right? And so it's so important to know that being sheltered is just as bad as being overexposed. Sometimes you can be overexposed. Now, I didn't say overexposed. I just said exposed. So there's a difference, right? So there's always a thin line between love and hate. There's always a thin line between joy and pain, right? There's always a thin line between winning and losing, you know? And that thin line is where we stand on when we're trying to figure out, what will I do with this moment? What will I do with this experience? You're always standing on the thin line when you're at the cuff of making a decision with what you will do with the emotion that you pulled or got from whatever situation that is. And so, as you see, we are 16 minutes in. That's why I said, if I get to talking, honey, I get to talking. I understand. I'm telling you, Vivian, wait till we finish, honey. You're going to overstand, right? And so to begin, we're going to go over some definitions. So we're going to start with exposed. We're going to start with exposed so that way we overstand where I'm going with this. And so for the definition of exposed, come on, phone. Okay, so is an adjective, and it says not covered or hidden, visible, not sheltered or protected from the weather. See, similar words would be unprotected, open. See, so to be exposed is to be open, and to be open is to be able to receive, right? So to be open is to be exposed and able to receive. So see how we change definitions depending on how we think of the word, right? Another one is another similar is wide open, right? Exposed is wide open, right? No covering. I'm just, what you see is what you get. Another one, it says in a vulnerable position or situation. Come on now, exposed. And that is vulnerable, defenseless, meaning when you're exposed, that means you weren't prepared for what happened. To be exposed means that you weren't anticipating the moment, that the moment just arrived and you were in it, right? Because you became vulnerable. To be vulnerable means that you didn't have the right, you didn't see it coming, you were open, right? To be defenseless, meaning that you didn't come ready and prepared for whatever that moment would bring, right? So you were defenseless. So we're talking about being exposed, not covered, being hidden, visible. You know what I'm saying? To be exposed is to be seen. To be seen right in the eye, right in the eye of somebody. Exposed means naked. Come on now, naked is exposed. That's right, Vivian. To be naked is to be exposed. Uncovered, unprepared. Absolutely. Those are a perfect words. To be uncovered, to be unprepared, right? Because when I'm vulnerable, I didn't expect that to come. I wasn't ready, right? To be not ready. I'm not ready. I'm exposed. I didn't get the right training for the job, right? I'm exposed, right? I don't got my jacket for the rain. So that's what it means to be exposed, right? And so we got it, not sheltered or protected from the weather. Come on now. Unprotected, open, wide open, and vulnerable, defenseless, and undefended. So what it means to be exposed. The next word we're going to go on now that we got exposed, we're going to go with developed. What does it mean to be developed? Come on. To be developed means advanced or elaborated to a specific degree. Develop. of a person or part of the body having specified physical proportions. Develop. Advance economically and socially. A strong man will develop muscles. Develop means something you create, right? Your cold might develop into a rare disease, right? You might just develop a vaccine to stop its spread, right? Like the pandemic. Develop is a verb that means to build up, grow, or improve gradually over time. To build up, grow, or improve gradually over time is to develop. So once you've been exposed, meaning unprotected, vulnerable, and then you develop in it, right? Meaning to create, to build up, to improve gradually over time. The last word we're going to deal with is to focus. What does it mean to focus? Now I know we all know focus. We all know basically all these words, but it's something to actually think about what the definition is, right? Uncovered, unprepared, wide open, defenseless. Yes, to be seen. I see you visit. I don't like this meaning weak. Where did you see the meaning weak for it? You looked up which one said weak? To focus is a person or their eyes adapt to the prevailing level of light and become able to see clearly, right? So to focus is to see clearly, just easily put, to see clearly or pay particular attention to. And so now the question is, what have you been exposed to and how have you developed so far? And so in life, right, when we think about the good and bad exposures, we're always going to go to the things that keep us from showing up, right? The only reason why we are learning about becoming our magic and activating our abracadabra moments is because of the things that we have been exposed to. Somebody didn't protect us in an area of our life, whether it was in growing up as a child. Maybe you went unprotected because something happened to you that nobody knew about, right? That is some of the instances that we would think about when you think about being exposed, right? Being vulnerable, right? Being unprotected, right? Not sheltered, right? And so being sheltered, you probably had a close hand, close eye on you. You barely had room to move, right? If you think of somebody who was sheltered in their life, you know that kid that go away to college and go buck wild because they never went to go out the fence, right? Because they only could go this far. And so being sheltered is being covered, and being exposed means to be uncovered, meaning that maybe you weren't protected. Somebody didn't show up. Somebody didn't see you. Somebody didn't do what it took, right? You were vulnerable. Why? Because you didn't have a covering over you at a certain time in a certain period where something traumatic happened, right? And so you've been exposed. Say you've been in a relationship, right? And you gave somebody your heart. So you became vulnerable, right? To trust them with who you were, right? To trust your feelings, to trust your dreams, your desires, right? With this person, and it didn't work out, right? And so you feel like you've been exposed because in your vulnerable state, you gave yourself to somebody and it broke your heart. And so now you still have that sense of that exposure, right? You can think of another example, having a friend, right? Telling them your deepest secrets, right? Telling them how you feel, telling them your low places, right? Being able to take that load off, and then something traumatic happens in a relationship, and perhaps it goes all haywire, and now you've been exposed, right? Prime example, we have so many different people, sex tapes. Oh my goodness, right? Kim Kardashian, she turned that pain into power, but she was vulnerable because she got exposed, right? For a private situation, a moment. I was looking at a video earlier of a young lady choosing to be so courageous and so brave that she went on and she spoke about, to encourage somebody else that years ago she was in a relationship, did a sex tape with a boyfriend. That's why to this day, honey, me and my husband, we ain't never done a sex tape. I don't play that. Anyway, but she did a sex tape with her and her boyfriend, and then I guess they broke up and they started to share with different people, and she was so vulnerable and exposed and so and held on to shame, in which she turned into power when she stood up and what spoke about it, right? Because so many people go through things that they get exposed to things that they never expected, right? They didn't plan for it, but it happened, right? And so that is the journey of life. Those are those broken pieces that I speak of. Those are those traumatic situations. Those are those valley moments, right? Those are when you have been exposed because you weren't ready. You were very vulnerable and life happened to you. The second one was, how did you develop in that exposure? So if somebody took a picture, right? Because life, when you think about exposure, I think about a photographer, right? And they want to develop that picture, right? They want it to get that vulnerable state where they put it in a dark room. And so when you think about you and developing in that exposed state, right? And so you were vulnerable and your heart got broken, and then you develop with that broken heart. Because we talk about focus, the thing you paid attention to, right? And so when you chose to think about that low moment, right? The thing that broke you, right? And when you focused on that, think about an amazing artwork picture. Even in the most distracted scene, right? You will always know the attention of the photographer by what stands out the most in the picture. Can we agree? When we are looking at a picture, there's always an object in which, even if it's a dark scene, even if it's a grim reality, even if the scene is all chaotic, you can tell by the picture of the artist or the photographer exactly what they were trying to get to capture, right? Where they wanted you to focus on. And what you focus on is what shine, right? What you focus on is what illuminated in the picture, whether it was the pain in somebody's eye, right? Whether it was the chains that was on a slave as they were walking, and the despair in their eye of everything that around that. So the picture created was a reaction of trauma, right? It was a exposure of a time frame, an experience, right? And then the focus was on maybe the tears, maybe the focus was on maybe the shame, maybe the focus was on the struggle, the pain, right? But what we have to decide is, how do you develop into what would be a beautiful picture, even with the distractions of everything that went around? How do you change your exposure? By being intentional about your development, right? Because in order for me to develop the right way, I have to identify what I have been exposed to, what I was vulnerable to, right? That thing that made me feel like nobody covered me, nobody was there for me, nobody showed up for me. And so it made me feel alone, right? It made me feel isolated. It made me feel vulnerable, right? And so when I began to look at that vulnerable state, when God had me open and vulnerable in order to what? To extract my solution. Because we all can agree that you are the solution to somebody's problem. And if we all can agree that you have an assignment that you must fulfill, and that everything you've gone through is a part of your story, right? Is how God will get the glory. So if I am developing in the things that I have been exposed to, and I haven't yet sat down to see the value in my exposures. And as Vivian was asking, I only looked at the negative part of what I've been exposed to, instead of recognizing that the who may kill me and the what will heal me. That I have to put down the pain in order to pick up the power. That in order for me to have developed in a way that I can be cohesive in the journey of me actually mending I'm coming together with other souls to be an asset, right? To be an advantage to them, because I have infected or imprinted myself because of how I allowed myself to develop after I have been exposed. And so I want to ask you, what have you been exposed to and how have you developed thus far? The question is, what is the focus in your picture? And so if you sat down and looked at your life to date, where you are right now, and you began to draw this masterpiece, or if you had a camera, because you are the photographer, and you had to create the scene of your life, right? And you had to create this picture that basically described who you were. How would you lay that picture around? How would you grab at the things that you have been exposed to, right? What would you develop into, and what would be the focus of the whole picture that is you? What would be the focus, even in the midst of all the distractions and the chaos? What would they be focused on when they looked at the picture that was you? What would they see when they looked at the artistry of the development and what you took, right? When you got that canvas, when God said I was going to break you and I was going to create you, and that, oh, I love that saying, that broken crayon still color. When I broke you, you ever had a broken crayon? I began to think about that broken crayon thing because that is my favorite part, right? It's not light. It's got the right color. It's broken in. You hold it better. And so you got to start asking yourself, how have I developed into my pains? How have I developed into my problems? How have I developed into the chaos that was around me? And what is the focus in my life? What am I paying attention to? What am I multiplying? How am I changing those abracadabra moments, right? What am I doing with who I have been created to be? How am I wasting my lens? How am I wasting my exposures? Because God made you vulnerable because you are the solution. He made you vulnerable because you have something to do. He made you vulnerable because if he had protected you from the weather, if he had protected you from everything, then what would you have built? What would the picture look like? If you just had a plain canvas with no artistry, who would stop to look at it? Who would be inspired by it? Who would see themselves in that story? Who would be able to develop their life through your strength, through your light, through your experiences? And so understanding that what you have been exposed to is what makes you the development of your wildest dreams. It is why you went through what you went through, because it is leading you somewhere. And when we recognize that as we're going and as we're being exposed, sometimes as we're developing, we open ourselves up too early, right? Because we always know that when you're being developed and the light hits you too soon, we want to come out the dark so bad. We want to come out of the dark so bad. But everybody knows that a picture is created in the dark room, right? That you are formed and developed. Every little crevice was created in that dark room, because too much light will stop the picture from becoming the beauty that it was created to be. Too much light too soon will ruin all the colors and all the beauty and all the details and the process of the development. And so because you have been given the opportunity to be exposed to whatever God made you vulnerable to, because he is so intentional. You know how I know? Because he writes the end before the beginning. And so where you are is headed to a finish line. And so what you've been exposed to has everything to do with who you were meant to develop into. And what you focus on will be the beauty in the picture that you're creating. Did you hear me? What you have been exposed to is the beauty in the development of who you are. And what you focus on will be the beauty in the picture. What you focus on is that abracadabra. What you focus on is that magic. That is that supernatural force. So yes, I've been through some things. Yes, I've experienced some things. Yes, I've been exposed to some things that I wish would have went differently. But guess what? Because God loves me so much, he allowed me to see the beauty in me even through the development. That I didn't develop with that broken heart. That I didn't develop with that untrustworthy spirit. That I didn't develop with fear. That I didn't develop feeling unworthy, that I didn't develop holding on to shame, that I didn't develop staying in the dark space, that I let go of the things that I couldn't change in order to develop into who I was created to be, that I decided that the dark moment would pass because that was a part of the process. That every time I create a new picture, it makes sense for me to be in the valley of my dream because I developed there. And the mountaintop is when God says, this is the focus of what it took for you to rise to this occasion. This is the focus of what it took for you to be who I called you to be. And so, yes, I exposed you because I equipped you to be able to be vulnerable enough to see past that pain. I created you to be the solution to somebody's problem. So I had to make you vulnerable because it made you empathetic. I had to leave you out there in the rain because it allowed you to learn to dance in it. It allowed you to build an umbrella, to create a solution in your problem, to wipe away your tears, to understand that it nurtured the seed. If it never rained, how could your seed grow in dirt? It's impossible. It requires sunlight, but it also requires rain. And you want to know what else God just gave me? That when you plant that seed, it is dark. Come on now. So your seed is even developed in the dark. And so that seed, you get that tree. That thing that you don't know what it will become. The seed that is you, right? Because you have been planted into the world and the world is waiting to see who will you be? What do you look like? You are a seed with no label. And life is about finding out the label that is you. As my friend William Brown would say, right? Beyond your labels. And so you have been labeled by God. And he wants you to take those instances of being exposed to whatever that thing that God exposed you to, learn from it, extract the good out of it so that you can develop as that whole being who becomes the solution because you focused on what it was supposed to get from you, what it was supposed to do through you, and who you would become because of that exposure. And so we all got to understand that being exposed is saying that I too have went through something that I didn't expect. Everybody has those, something happens to them that they didn't expect. It is the price of admission. It is what we all must endure. It is what we go through in order to be that focus point. You want somebody to focus on you, then you're going to have to develop into something that they can decide what is in that picture. If you stay chaotic, where so many things in the picture that draws your attention, right? Because you're all over the place. You got this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing because you haven't let go of all those things in order to focus on the most important thing. And is that who did you become through that thing? Who are you today? What did it really do to you? And how are you celebrating what it did to you? And how are you making sure the focus is on the right thing? The focus should never be on the distractions. The focus should always be on the light. The focus should never be on the valleys. It's always going to be on the mountaintop, right? And so that we got to begin to change our focus by choosing to see the victory instead of paying attention to the loss. We got to change our focus by choosing to see the mountaintop instead of staying in the valley. We got to change our focus by seeing what we got through instead of what we came out of, right? What we had to go through. We got to understand we came out. Our focus is the coming out. Our focus is the resurrection. Our focus is who we became because of it. Our focus is the fact that we are a solution because we solved the problem. You had to go to that thing. You had to be in that place. You had to deal with whatever it was that you dealt with because it was necessary in order for you to be who you were called to be. And so what have you been exposed to thus far? And how has that developed your mind? Because the only thing we have to do is renew our mind, right? The only thing we have to do is renew our mind. And so once we begin to renew our mind, we change our heart space, we change our focus, and then we change how we develop. And so you have the power. You are your magic. And you can decide how you develop in that dark place. You can decide by paying attention to the lessons, by seeing what it was teaching you, by figuring out how can I pull the best out of this? What can I extract from this situation in order to be the promise that I was called to be, in order to show up in my promise by accepting that it required a process. It required some dark hours. It required being planted in the dirt, in the ground. It required that time for you to get all that was needed for you to be developed. And so how have you been developing? How has it been going? What does that look like? So we are 40 minutes in, y'all. I just gave y'all that 15-minute word, if actually more, 20-minute word. So now I want to come see what kind of questions that we have. We have Vivian says she's agreed, because I want y'all to understand this is us really asking, like, how can I serve you? How can we decide? So in this next 15 minutes, this is a time for you to ask any question. So now that I explained to you what I meant by what have you been exposed to and how have you developed thus far, I want you to take this time to start thinking and telling me, what did you develop that you want to change? Because you can change the picture. You can change how you're developing, especially if you're still in a dark place, right? If you're still in a dark room trying to get it all together, then you have the power to change what it is you're going to develop into by what you focus on. What do you want your picture to be about? What do you want the focus on your life to be about? Do you want it to be about everybody telling the story about what you've been through? Do you want the story to always to be about your valley? Do you always want to call somebody and talk about what you lost? Or are you ready to start talking about your gains? Are you ready to start focusing on the treasures that was created through that exposure? Are you ready to celebrate what was created in those valley moments? Are you ready to develop into the vision that you have for yourself? Are you ready? Healing is in as many areas as possible. It's very important. And that is the key, Vivian, because we always focus on one area or multiple. No, we always focus at too many areas at a time. So now's the time to say, I focused on this. Now it's time to move on to this. And now it's time to move on to this. To make the picture beautiful is to spend time with each piece. And so we have so many pieces of ourselves. That's why I was talking yesterday about picking up the broken pieces. There are so many pieces that make up who you are. That's how intricate and amazing and precise God made you in detail. That's why you're so one of a kind. And so since we have so many pieces, then being able to see who we are is the key. Healing is the key. Knowing that once I heal these different areas in my life, I will have the ability to what? To blossom into that abundant lifestyle, right? To activate all the different things that make me one of a kind, that makes my life the dream that I have for myself. And so it's so important that we know that healing needs to take place in every single area because of what you've been exposed to. And if you do not heal those exposed places and spaces in your life, then you will develop and you will focus on the wrong thing. And when people think of you, they will be immediately concentrating on the wrong parts of what makes you you, because that is the thing that you have put on display. When you think people are seeing you and bringing up your thing, it's because you gave it to them. It's because you put it on a plate. It's because you chose to complain about it. It's because you chose to focus on it. And so you gave them something to talk about. You gave them something to dismantle because you were so stuck in that exposure that you lost the point of what it was developing in you. And you focus on the wrong part of it. And so it's so important that we focus on what matters so that we can make our life matter, so that we can make our breath matter, so that we can make these relationships matter. A picture of strength, confidence, and love. Come on now, Vivian. I would agree. And what would create that picture of strength, confidence, and love, right? You being exposed. Now, you said that you weren't exposed to too many things. Do you think that played a role in how you develop, how fast you get over things, right? Because if you're somebody who's been overprotected, it may be harder for you to adjust to the rain, to adjust in the weather. That's why I say being overexposed is not good, but not being exposed at all is bad, just as bad. You know how they say no credit is just as bad as bad credit, because we don't know where you lie on the spectrum. Same idea. Being not being exposed and being overexposed are equally the same, but being exposed is necessary in development. Because if I don't make you vulnerable, you don't learn your strengths in order to know what you're capable of. As R. Kelly would say, nobody, baby. Nobody, baby. Impatience. You said you learned impatience, Vivian? Yes, ups and downs. Let's see. No, I want to rid myself of my stumbling block past so that I am completely free. And you know how you rid yourself of your stumbling back past? You rid yourself of your stumbling back past by accepting what is behind you, right? By accepting that is what I need for a blueprint. Because now I'll be different the next time, the next situation, the next moment, right? And so the way I get rid of my stumbling back past is to say we're going to keep on stumbling. But it's not that I stumble, it's that I keep on getting up. I don't care how many times I stumble, as long as you're stumbling forward, right? And so we don't want to stumble back, because that means we can't be present. You know our motto: I pledge to embrace who I am today, love who I was yesterday, and inspire who I will become tomorrow. And so in order for me to be present, I got to love who I was yesterday. So when I stumble back, I have to embrace what I've been exposed to in order to love what I've been developed into, in order to focus on what I want for my future, right? So I got to love what I've been exposed to yesterday in order to develop and what I want to be today, in order to focus on what I want for my future. And so I got to look forward more than I'm looking backwards. I look backwards only to remind myself of how trustworthy I am, how powerful I am, how determined I am, and how I can have anything I want if I move in the direction that it is. As long as I walk toward it, I can eventually get it, right? So I gotta be very, very focused, very, very focused. I had some exposure that wasn't good. We all did, honey, right? Because God is always, I mean, you can't be protected your whole life. Even if you're a lot of parents, like, you hear that being molested, they say is, what is it, one out of every three? One out of every three. It might be larger numbers now, which means, and half of those people kept a secret. So a lot of people have been exposed to things, right? And we suffer in silence. And so we develop in shame. We develop in pain. We develop in unworthiness. We develop in regret. We develop in devaluing ourselves, right? Those are the things we develop. We develop in broken relationships, right? We develop in soul ties, right? We develop habits to cover up that pain and shame that we never let go, right? And so we are always developing from what we've been exposed to. The question is how we develop is what we focus on. So we focus on the fact that, yeah, I was molested, but I made it through. Right? I have the power to speak to somebody else, right? To give them the strength. Yeah, I may have been abused, but I made it through. I have the power to go and speak at a shelter, right? Yeah, I may have lost my job, but I have the power to speak about how after a job loss, you can keep on going past, right? So you got all these things that you've been exposed to, right? Being fired is a huge thing that you've been exposed to, right? Because you're vulnerable on a job. Because at any given time, somebody can say, I no longer need your services. They don't care about your bills. They don't care about your kids. They don't care about your family, right? But so at the end of the day, we are always in an exposed state. And we leave ourselves vulnerable, right? Because that is what makes up who we are, right? And we always, as you say, Vivian, we always make it through. And so making it through is about understanding that it is not what I have been exposed to. It is how I develop after I had been exposed to that thing, because I still focused on love. I still focused on peace. I still focused on good people in the world, right? I did not get into a good relationship because of what I've been exposed to. I didn't treat my kids bad because of what I've been exposed to. I didn't stop getting into having friendships because of what I've been exposed to. I didn't stop looking for a new job because of what I've been exposed to, right? But in life, when we get these emotional parts that break us, we develop in a negative way because we are focused on the thing that happened and not the thing that it was trying to extract from us. And what it was trying to extract was your purpose. What it was trying to extract was your strength. What it was trying to extract was a new focus. And so it is our responsibility to begin to focus on the abracadabra moments. It's our responsibility to begin to be exposed to seeds of positive thought, right? Because if you get exposed to soul coaching Monday through Friday, right? The abracadabra moment, then what will you develop into? And what will your focus be on? Your focus will be on I am and not I ain't. Your focus will be on what I can become and not what I went through. Your focus will be on what I can be, what I can solve. How can I show up? What is the power behind the pain? Your focus will be on the strength, the beauty, the vessel that is you. What is hidden in your belly? That will be your focus. And so this is the season to decide what you will be exposed to, how that will develop you because of your focus. So you have the power to see clearly who you want to be and how you develop moving forward from today. Because if you hear my voice, then you got a new word, a new piece of information to apply, right? Because knowledge is power, but we all understand that applied knowledge is transformation. You heard that here. Applied knowledge is transformation. And so in order for you to develop differently or even develop even more than what you have thus far, what you want to do is see yourself. What you want to do is focus on positive, not negative. You want to be exposed to the things that are going to feed who you are, what you want, because you spent some time with yourself. You got to know yourself. You love yourself through those valley moments, and you realize that what you focus on is what the world will see when your picture develops, when your story is told. And so change your focus from what you've been exposed to in order to develop into the beauty that is you, right? We got Vivian says that very much so. Insecurities, we focus on that, but I made it through. We all make it through. And if we can celebrate our victories and not worry about the fact that we were at war, then we would be celebrating, right? And focusing on the wins. And when you focus on the wins keep on showing up, right? The wins keep on manifesting. That's right, that part. Come on now. Hey, Melissa Bull, no security is a job or pretty much a whole lot of things. Come on now. No security is a job. You don't get security. So you stay vulnerable, right? You're vulnerable. Being an entrepreneur, you stay vulnerable, right? Because if I don't sell a book, if I don't sell a shirt, if I don't sell a program, then that is my livelihood. I got 5 kids, right? My husband, if he don't sell flour, if he don't make a go do an HVAC job, if he don't find means of work as an entrepreneur, then we're vulnerable. We've been exposed. But we know what it takes to develop us the way we want to, right? So we got to do the work. We got to develop ourselves in a way we want to be developed. I have because I stayed ashamed, sadly. Come on now. Remove that shame and get in your lane, beautiful. Remove the shame and get in your lane. I sure am hungry. Come on now. Come on now. It's time to eat. It is time to eat. So we are 4 minutes away. We are going to do our I am affirmation for the day. Every day we pick a card. We are on day number, this is week 3. We missed only one day. Today is Wednesday. So this is the 12th card out of the batch. So if you would like to have some I am affirmation card, please go to preciouspaulin.com and find an I am affirmation for every day so that you can what? Change what you're exposed to so that you can develop and focus on a thing that will what? Increase your territory, right? Give you the life of your dreams. So before we go over the card and end out this live, we always know that this is the time. It's giving time. Come on now. It's giving time. And so I often like to give you the opportunity. I often say that it would be a disservice for me to not offer you the opportunity to what? Sow a seed in my life. And so the seed can be at any capacity. If you need a tool to ignite your abracadabra, please go to preciouspaulin.com and you can get books, programs, calendars, games in order to what? Figure out how do I ignite the thing that is me in order to love myself to full so that I can create the dream that I want for myself because I recognize I am my magic. The other way that you can bless me or bless yourself in return is by shopping at I Choose Me Bling Boutique, where you have the opportunity to wear all of this amazing attire made by yours truly. And last but not least, you can Cash App $P words or PayPal Precious P words at AOL.com. And if you do not have the financial capability to sow a seed that way, you can sow a seed by just sharing. That fingertip can go so far. So if I have served you, if I have lifted you, if I have poured into you today and you want to give back at any way, please send a thank you. That goes far. Share goes very far. So a seed can be whatever you have the capability of giving, and it will be multiplied in my life. And so I often, as always, like to give you that opportunity because that's what it's all about, right? We give and we receive, but you can't get unless you open yourself up. So let's see what this I am for the day is. Let's bring this card down so that we can see. So right now we're talking about what we focus on is what we do, right? Because we've been exposed and it's time for us to develop and focus on what God wants us to be. And so what is the I am that God wants us to see today? This is the I am. I am purposeful. Good God Almighty. I'm telling you, I can't make this up every day. Every day you went through the car with me. And so the I am purposeful is about us understanding that the reason that you are purposeful is because of what God has exposed you to. And because he has exposed you to that thing, in order for you to develop and bring forth the seed, right, of you, right, in order for you to bring forth that God piece that makes you so one of a kind, by you focusing, right, seeing clearly that you are purposeful, and everything you've been through, everything you've experienced is what makes you so purposeful. And so I want you tonight to look in the mirror and remind yourself how purposeful you are. Excuse me, without further ado, we are going to end. We are at the hour. I want to thank you for tuning in to Become Your Magic Power Hour with yours truly, Miss Precious Paulin, the Queen of Soul Stirring Inspiration. I hope that I have ignited your fire. I hope, thank you so much, Vivian. I hope that I have, I choose me Bling Boutique .company.site, but I'm gonna put it up there. I hope I have helped you see that the things that you have been exposed to in this lifetime was all about the development on who you were called to be. You are a purposeful child of God, and I want you to focus on, see clearly the gift that is you in order to what? Make a difference in this world, because it is a relay race and somebody is relying on you. So it is time for us to turn our heartbeat into a soul beat in order to leave a soul print, because the fingerprint, it tells us what we got wrong in this world, but the soul print, it tells us what we got right. And what we got right is our focus. And so I want you to know that you can never turn on anybody else's light, but you can provide enough light for them to find their switch. So stay lit in this world so somebody can find their way out of the darkness. The world needs your very, very special God piece. Don't forget to show up with your magic in order to ignite all of those different abracadabra moments. I love you guys. Remember to look yourself in the mirror tonight and say, I am purposeful. I will see you guys tomorrow. I cannot wait to see what God will give me for us to talk about on tomorrow. But I want you to take care of those souls and know that you are purposeful. This is your season. And until you are able to accept what you've been exposed to and develop into the gift that is you by focusing on the positive and not the negative, you will never create the life of your dreams. You have the power to become your abracadabra. Know your worth and understand. I choose me. Hashtag no more excuses, because you were born enough. See you tomorrow. Love you guys. Mwah, 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 Nicole. Love you. See you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.